Right. We're about ready. I want to ask how many items he has under the executive session in this committee of the whole. Right.
I have 4 items to discuss tonight.
Okay, how much time do you think you'll need for that? 20 minutes, half hour, or less?
I think a half hour would be sufficient.
All right, I just want everybody to keep that in mind as we get to that point. It's 5:01. With that in mind, let's get started. I'll call the meeting to order. 2 of our board members have some pressing family concerns, and so they're doing their best. They're with us now, and out of respect for their situations, I don't need to mention what it is, but 2 of them are struggling with some health concerns for loved ones. So keep them in mind. I wanted to begin the meeting with a discussion of rules, not to, perhaps mostly because Mr. Spiegel late last week requested that we all be forwarded a copy, and because of some concerns that some people have expressed, I think it's healthy and it's time that we have a conversation about it. We do not, however, have time to go in depth to very much with 3 or 4 items here in the public part of this committee of the whole, and then the need for half an hour's worth of executive session before a regular meeting. But I do want to touch on a couple of things. There's 100,000 citizens in Erie approximately, and all of them can't be in a meeting and give the okay to superintendent's proposals or ask questions. So the law allows for 9 of us to be elected to do that work. 100,000 would be unwieldy, but sometimes the 9 of us can be unwieldy. And it's my responsibility, for better or for worse, to manage that. To preside means to manage, and that's what I attempt to do. And I admit to being a human being who has imperfections and frailties, and even so I do the best I can, and I intend to continue to meet my responsibility for the remaining months of the year that I am chairperson of the board. I want to say that the rules are a guide for us, and they ought not to be strictly applied, but we have them as a guide for how we proceed through things based on our history and our experience as a board. And every beginning of every new year, we evaluate them and we scrap, add, or modify them, and then we proceed under them. When they don't apply to something, we fall back on Robert's rules. And when neither applies to something, there's some discretion to be applied, and that falls upon the chairperson to do that. And so I don't ask for sympathy, but just understanding that I do the best I can, and I would hope that the next person who occupies this role will do the best they can. To use that discretion with respect and regard for each other, and for the responsibility to keep focus on our most important responsibility, which is to make official the business of the school district. We hire a superintendent and a staff, and we charge them to do the work of the school district. They interact with us, bringing us their suggestions, thoughts, and ideas and proposals. We stall, delay, discuss, modify, reject, approve all of these things. But they have their role and we have ours. And there are mechanisms in place for public questions to reach the administration properly. And we ought to respect that, since we pay employees to do it and we hold them accountable to. We ought not try to get too in between the public questions and the communications apparatus that we have in place. That's not to say we can't ask questions that we hear out in public. We must, we should, but we're more than question relayers. We have a vote to cast, and that's more important than some of the conversations we end up bogged down in. I don't want to limit discussion. I want to just encourage that we all bring our best selves to every meeting, and all things considered, I think we've done remarkably well to get 8 months through our year together as a board and deal with all the stuff we've dealt with as effectively as we have. But I'm taking this moment tonight because we have had some contentious moments in recent meetings, and Mr. Spiegel did ask for those rules to be disseminated. I want to say that the rules don't cover discussions. We have a rule that says on any motion before us that a board member may speak for a total of 10 minutes and have 2 opportunities to do it. I'm paraphrasing. I'll look and see if I'm reading that correctly, but no board member shall speak more than 5 minutes on any motion or resolution under discussion, and no member shall speak more than twice, 10-minute total on the same question without the consent of the board. There's an intent there to make board members have an opportunity to express themselves on important things that are about to be voted on, but there is a limit because there are 9 of us, and 9 times 10 minutes is an hour and a half on any one particular motion, taken to its extreme. The rule above it says when a member is about to speak on any question, he or she shall address the president and shall confine himself to the question in debate and shall avoid personalities. The intent of that is to keep focus on only what is being about to be voted on in the form of a motion. So there's an intent that the president needs to be guiding and steering the discussion towards some logical end. And a good chairperson doesn't try to lead it in the way they want it to go or the way their philosophical leanings take them, but instead to allow for an impartial airing of the question before us and then bring it to some resolution, whether it's approval, delay, modification, or whatever. So I say again, there's other rules that we have let go, but I don't think we want to be in the position, nor should we try to be in the position of having these rules be strictly applied, because there are moments when there must be flexibility. And I don't want me or any other future chairman to use that as an excuse to do whatever the heck the chairman at the time wants. It's just important to me to just say I wish everyone would come to every meeting and bring their best selves and pause a little bit to think what's important to mention tonight, what's important before us, what can I do in my role, and to realize you don't always have to have an insightful comment on everything that comes before us, although you may. So I just want to ask that we proceed forward with flexibility, respect for each other, courtesy towards each other. I want to challenge myself to do exactly the same, but we've got to keep things moving in a positive direction, and these rules are a guide, and there are some here which I won't mention because we don't have time, but we don't always follow them strictly, and perhaps that has become a problem, but I'll just stress this one. That rule about discussion for 10 minutes total, twice to a motion, there's no such rule that covers discussion on any topic that the superintendent brings us and board members want to ask questions or comment on or be involved in a discussion with. There's no rule about that, but when time is of the essence, when time is crunched and we haven't dealt with the business of the district, it's my responsibility to get us back on, and I attempt to do that. And if I hurt anyone's feelings in the process, I apologize for doing so in the past and any time in the future. The responsibility falls on me to keep us focused and addressing the matters before us in a responsible and reasonable way. I'll just ask if anybody wants to chime in, and if a bunch of you, if a significant number of you want to have a meeting about this or a retreat about it, as might be suggested, we can do that. But we do assemble monthly, like we are tonight, to approve the business of the school district, and that's our biggest responsibility tonight. And before we do that, we have to have a half an hour of executive session. Before that, we have a few things to do. So if anyone has something they want to say about what I'm talking about, please do so. But again, President, 5 or 10 minutes, I want to get us back on our usual track.
Mr. Nichols.
Sumner, I hear you're looking.
Yes. One suggestion I have for everybody to think about would be that if we limited discussion to 5 minutes, that we ought to have the ability to yield in favor of somebody else our time, because there are many areas that have no knowledge about, and I'd rather hear from other members, even if they went over 5 minutes, who are more familiar with it. Just if we could have that kind of flexibility of yielding time to another member.
Well, I take for granted, Sumner, that we just do that, but if you feel better about viewing it that way, I'm not opposed to viewing it that way, but I just, I've learned too that when you want to make a point or you want to learn something, you're better off asking one question or two at the most and letting the answer come, rather than continue to, you lose attention to the point you want to make or the question you want answered if you tend to talk too long. And so emotions run high because we all care. I don't question anyone's caring or sincerity, but my responsibility is to keep us focused. And so none of that is a negative to what you just said, son. It's just, I'm just trying to be understood as wanting to be reasonably effective.
But yeah, we understand the difficult position you're in, that there are 9 of us and you're trying to keep these meetings to a reasonable length. And it does require some refereeing.
Thank you. That's mainly my point. So I love all of you and I hope you all love me. Anyone else on this?
Angela raised her hand.
Angela McNair. Angela McNair.
I'm sorry, I'm not, these Zoom meetings is hard for me sometimes. My thing is, and I missed a little bit of the, whatever Sumner said, but it doesn't matter to me, neither here nor there, because my comments are, if my thing is, people have the, if we sit on the board and, like you said, we have, we sit on this board for a reason, because people voted for us to be on this board. And I personally would rather see the rules strictly enforced, exactly how they are supposed to be enforced in our bylaws or whatever the policies that we have, than to sit here and they be enforced when you feel like enforcing them, because you don't want to allow somebody to speak when they should have the opportunity to say whatever they feel that needs to be said, whether you feel like you want to hear it or not. Because most of the time when I hear people speak in their commentary, they say something that's relevant to what we're talking about. 9 times out of 10, there are those few moments where you might need to redirect, and that is your job, and I respect that fully. But I don't appreciate how the public has even noticed that certain people, and most definitely myself, are cut off when you don't want to hear or you don't think is relevant to what is being talked about, when quite actually it is relevant to what's being talked about. And I feel like, don't step on my toes if you're not going to step on Darlene's toes or nobody else's toes when they're speaking, because I counted minutes of who talks how long. And I know last meeting I had things to say and I had my time to speak, but I know I didn't speak longer than some other people that had their chance to speak. So my thing is I'm gonna respect you as a president, as I should, and as all of us should. But at the same time, I need the respect that I deserve too, as a person that was elected to this board to represent a group of people, as their person that they would like to see, speaking on their behalf. So I just ask that, the respect that you want us to give you and give Brian and whoever else, give it to me too, because I deserve that respect. And I got just as many or more votes than the people that sit on this board with me. So don't take that away from me. And if my 5 minutes is about whatever I want to talk about, let me talk about it. And once again, I said, I'd rather see the rules enforced than to see some people get dismissed when they're trying to speak. When you get ready to dismiss us and tell us not to, but then allow other people to say whatever they want to say.
Okay. Anyone else on this? If you want to continue this either later in the meeting when we get the business over with, or if you want to have a special meeting to deal with this, if that's necessary, those are options we can do.
And Mr. President, I did request from
Uh,
I request from our lawyer, Tim. Yeah, I request from Tim, our lawyer, that, and I don't know if you were going to bring this up or did he even speak to you about it or not, that we do have a board retreat so that if we need to go over these rules in more in depth, or we need to discuss how some of these meetings are going, or even the expectations of what we expect from the administration during these meetings or before the meetings or whatever. If we need to do that, then I feel like, maybe it needs to be done because, I just, that's an option.
okay. Well, he has talked to me a couple days ago. I think he made me aware of that, and I had hoped to maybe accomplish the same thing with this brief conversation now. If this brief conversation now isn't going to succeed and more people than you want to have a retreat, then we'll have a retreat. I'm not dismissing your idea. But with all that we have going on, I wish we wouldn't put our inability to work together ahead of some of the important questions we have facing us.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Spagel?
Yes, one, I appreciate you and everybody else entertaining this whole conversation. More than anything else, we are a group of professionals. I like to think that all of us, all my peers here are professional in our actions and in our words. But we have to act in a professional manner. And again, it's somewhat embarrassing when I hear my peers raising their voice. That's not how we should react. That's not how we should conduct business. We have to make sure we act professional and pleasant within all of our points. I disagree with a lot of you guys a lot of time. A lot of you guys disagree with me frequently, and that's fine. Our voices should never be raised. We should act as professional as we can at all times. Again, we are setting the example for our students. We're setting an example for the community. And when we raise our voice and act other than professional, then we have to make sure that we limit that at all expense. That's all. Thank you.
Take your point, Tom. Thank you. Anyone else before we get into the business of the committee of the whole meeting? Again, we can get back to this anytime a number of you want to. Okay, then for now, it's health and safety plan with the superintendent. Mr. Polito?
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, tonight on the agenda is the revised health and safety plan, and it's based on our deliberations and discussions over the last couple weeks. It includes actually the adjustments that we agreed to last week, with everybody starting remotely, except for our special education students and our career and tech students, with the goal of trying to get the elementary students back to in-person instruction on that hybrid model by the second quarter. So over the past week, we've had a lot of questions from board members. We've tried to answer them, but I think that most of the questions have really come out of special education. So I thought I'd just take a few minutes tonight and have Angie Kanaki share her thoughts on that and why we are recommending that we bring those students back in person. So I'll turn it over to Angie.
Thanks, Brian. So the reason why the district has decided, well, the administration anyway, has felt that we should bring our specialized program students back is because the federal government has not alleviated the obligation of school districts to provide a free and appropriate public education, what we call FAPE, during this pandemic. And we know that FAPE is much more challenging to provide to our students with significant disabilities. They require hands-on support, hands-on prompting strategies. They require modeling of new skills that might be more difficult to deliver to them remotely. Some students that have physical disabilities, they might not be able to position themselves in a way that they can really benefit. We have students with visual impairments that might not be able to benefit from remote instruction or from, modeling that's delivered remotely. So for those students, we thought, that we should be able to try to bring them back for those reasons. Also, these students are more likely to experience significant skill regression that may take months to recoup, if at all. And childcare options was another factor, because these students who have significant disabilities, it's much more difficult for their parents, if they have to work, to find childcare options for them. And then, lastly, the rationale really for not returning all students at this time had to do with the deficits with the ventilation system, except for certain classrooms in our buildings. So, we thought that, if we could bring those students into classrooms that do have adequate ventilation, that we could, protect them that way. But once this issue is resolved and all the students come back, we really can't prohibit or exclude our students with significant disabilities from returning for in-person instruction, because then it becomes a discrimination issue. So those were the major reasons why the recommendations being made that we return those students who have significant disabilities and are attending specialized programs, because they stay with their same peer group all day and with the same teachers. So they're not, integrating a lot, with other students. So those were our rationales.
Thank you, Angie.
Brian,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Just, again, we want to keep this on the agenda for the next couple meetings. As you know, this is going to be modified as circumstances change and we get more guidance. So I'd like to just open it up and see if there's any questions or any concerns from the board members that we'd like to address before the vote tonight.
Okay.
Mr. President, I know I raised my hand. And I appreciate you, Brian, Angie, and everybody else that has worked on this. I know that I've been bringing this up in every meeting that we have in regards to the reopening, and I really want to say I appreciate it. As a mother of two students who have autism and are in autistic support classes, I really do appreciate all the efforts that's been put forth. My further question, because I've already asked a lot of questions on this topic, my further question would be, have you I know in the last meeting I asked about the number of students that would be entering back in the buildings that have disabilities. So I would want to know how many students and families have been reached out to confirm that they will be bringing their students back into the building. Since we have such a smaller number now, I would figure that the administration would be able to reach out directly to these parents. And also, which buildings will they be going into? I know that there's still some concerns with a lot of the buildings. So I want to know which building are we recommending that these students attend? Will all grade levels attend in one school, or will we be breaking them up into grade levels? I know my daughters have multiple grade levels, but they're all still elementary. So will the elementary, middle, and high school special needs students all be attending one building? So, and then what I still would like to know, what is the health and safety plan as far as when it comes to those students, even though I know they will be contained into one room for the day, but also what is going to be the sanitation process with those students? Is there going to be hand washing stations that are extra put in there? Are there going to be sanitizer stations in the rooms? Like, how is that going to be handled? Is that all included in the plan? I know we were thinking about that for the general plan, but now that things have changed, do we have any special things for that? And then also, what will be the process for the third party agencies that will be entering to the buildings with these special needs students? I know that a lot of them get maybe behavioral or physical therapy. I know we have our own people that come in from the district, but anybody who's coming in from outside of the district, what will be the procedures for them coming in and working with those students?
Okay, just I guess to start with the classrooms, each of our buildings does have classrooms that have adequate ventilation. We have a meeting scheduled next Tuesday with the architects and engineers on ventilation, just to finalize their report and the recommendations to get the buildings up and running, at least at the elementary level. One of the other things we will be discussing is what specific rooms in each building we can use, again, with the goal of trying to keep the students in the buildings that they're assigned to, rather than move them around if at all possible. The other thing that we'll discuss is ventilation in hallways, common areas. We want to make sure that we have all our bases covered on that before we bring or finalize where they're going to be located. As far as the sanitizing procedures, those are all detailed out in our health and safety plan, along with the cleaning checklist and timelines for doing those procedures. I believe that we put one of those cleaning checklists in the board library for you to review. We will have the hand sanitizing stations throughout the building, and certainly in the rooms where we have in-person instruction. And one of the other things that we talked about doing today that we'd like to recommend is to, with us not going back to in-person for all the students, we have a number of teaching assistants. We feel that we could assign those individuals to the special needs classrooms just as additional support in those buildings to ensure that the students are following the safety protocols, wearing their PPE, and practicing social distancing. So that should address that. As far as the third parties go, again, that's all addressed in our plan. We have a checklist that they have to sign when they come in. We'll certainly be working with each of those organizations to ensure that they're following protocols on their end as well to keep our families safe. And then I think the first question you asked, Ms. McNair, was about the families and how they're responding. And I believe Angie has been working with the families along with the special ed supervisor. So do you want to provide an update there?
Yeah, so our most recent numbers as of today, this is for the entire district with all of our self-contained programs. We have 46 students who parents said that they wish to return full-time. We have 43 who said they want remote only, and we have 25 who said that they want a hybrid model where they don't have to come every day, but they'd like to come, 2 days a week. And then, so far there's like 110 people who haven't responded that we've either left messages for, a couple of times, or we haven't been able to contact them because their numbers are disconnected. So we're continuing to try to reach out to more people every day. But so far, those are what our numbers are looking like.
Those numbers sound very low to me. Are there only 200 special needs students in the district?
No, and it's not all the special needs students that we're reaching out to right now. It's just those students who are in specialized programs. So students who are in small self-contained programs, like our life skills students, our students with autism, our emotional support students who are in full-time self-contained placement. So those are the students who we're planning to bring back, because those are the students who are most at risk for, regression, and for us to have more difficulty providing FAPE to remotely.
Well, I'm not clear then. So are you saying that you only plan to bring back 200, of which about roughly half have opted to stay at home? So it's only 100 students that will be coming to the schools?
I'm sorry. I want to say that we're closer to the whole number would be about 350 maybe altogether. But these are the numbers that we've at least had a contact for. We're still working on it. So we haven't contacted everyone yet, but that's the number that we have made contact with so far. So there's probably, there are more out there that we still need to contact.
When you contact them, do you ask them to consult their physicians about this? I mean, I'm very uncomfortable about inviting special needs children back in who are more vulnerable to this than anybody. And, we can't render medical opinions. Shouldn't they be checking with their physicians on this? Because there certainly is going to be a risk to have children re-entering the buildings in groups.
Well, not all of the students.
East side is in the red zone now, so it's not just ventilation. We are not in a good position to be doing this. The city of New York is going to try to do this. Their positivity is down to 1%. We're going up. We're well into the yellow, and the entire east side is in a red zone. So we are a very vulnerable area to be doing this. I love you, girls. Here it's only 300 students.
I love you, girls.
How many students would there be for the technical school?
Go. Good
do that away from me.
Brian, how many would be in the technical school?
Altogether, what we're planning for the career and tech students is having 9th and 10th come in on Mondays and Tuesdays, 11th and 12th on Thursdays and Fridays. So we would be close to about 500 students total if everybody elects to participate.
Okay, thank you. And
Okay, there goes a half hour, and we've got a half hour if we're gonna squeeze in the executive session.
And Mr. Is there room to talk about this during our regular meeting?
Brian, is there a resolution we're gonna act on that deals with this, which would allow us to discuss it at the moment?
Yes.
Then yes, Angela, you'll have an opportunity to discuss it under the 10-minute twice rule at the time we vote on the new business.
Okay, I'll save any other comments for later so that we can have our executive session.
Okay.
I have a question on ventilation, Brian. You're saying we have certain rooms that have adequate air changes, but to my understanding, we don't have any HEPA filters. So if we're running central ventilation, we're putting the whole building at risk. That's a concern I have.
So the guidance that we've received is we need to have a certain percentage of outside air coming into the buildings to circulate through, and that's what we've been using.
Darlene?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Angie, it's not something you have to do right now, but I think it'd be helpful for the board if we knew, I have similar questions to what Angela had, that if we knew where the classrooms were going to be and what exceptionalities were going to be in those classrooms, or what exceptionalities were going to be in the building. So if we could have an idea of that, number one. Number two, Angela brought up a really good point about the hand washing stations. And you and I had a conversation about this last week. After talking to our representative from the health department, John McEnroe, he clearly said that hand washing was the best form or the best practice that we could use to deter spreading the COVID. One of them being masks being another one. And so if we could be looking, Brian, when we go and decide where these classrooms are going to be, if there's a possibility that hand washing stations could be in these classrooms, I think that would be a benefit to our special needs students. I realize, though, that when everyone comes back, those classrooms, as Angie and I discussed, might have been another teacher's classroom. But again, and then like our LSS kids, if the school doesn't have an elevator, then I don't know that they should be located on this second floor. Just little things like that I'd like us to look at and be very careful about when we bring the students back. Thank you.
You have Attorney Gornall waiting in the wings to talk to us about Title IX and a resolution that's on our agenda tonight too. How about if we allow her to do that and see how much time we have left for the executive session, and this other discussion can continue under new business. Attorney Gornall.
Okay. Good evening. I want to start off what I have to say with an apology. I know that this board has so much information, funneling into you, and it's very hard for you to process it when it gets placed on the agenda at the last minute like this. So I apologize and I take responsibility for that. It's just this Title IX issue has been really difficult. It's been a challenging time for school districts to have to address these new pretty comprehensive legal changes in the middle of the COVID pandemic. I am very close to being done with a comprehensive review of the 6 or 7 policies that the school district received last week from PSBA that, again, more comprehensively deal with these Title IX changes. But since the effective date of this law is Friday, and since the federal court has still not issued an opinion on the pending injunction claim with regard to postponing the effective date, I felt uncomfortable letting August 14th come and go without the school district passing a law or a resolution, in essence, a declaration in which the board is saying the Erie School District is going to comply with the new Title IX regulations as of August 14th. And you're authorizing the superintendent to ensure that the administration underneath him is going to comply with the provisions of Title IX. And I would say, I don't know how many meetings you have, but certainly by your regular meetings in September or before, if you have special meetings, that you will have a more comprehensive packet of policies that have more detailed grievance procedures in place and identified in addition to this resolution. So this is a bridge, it's a stopgate. If you would, it seems like we would have many Title IX complaints a year. We actually don't. So let's hope that one does not come up in the next 2 or 3 weeks in this interim bridge period. But if it does, I certainly am well versed enough in this law now to be able to work with the administration to ensure that all of the detailed provisions of this law are implemented with both the respondent and the complainant and any other individual who would be impacted by the filing of such a complaint. So we are asking that you approve this bridge or interim resolution and expect that you will have a much larger packet of these types of policies to approve at your regular meetings in September.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions or comments on this? Okay. We'd have about 20 minutes to have an executive session and still give everyone a minute or two break before 6 o'clock. So if we could see what we could accomplish now in the executive session, and if we need to continue that later after the regular meeting, we'll have to do that. So would everyone please exit